You're listening to the Galaxy Poet Podcast, a new digital platform centered around art, the creative process, and creative solutions to problems facing our world. I am your host, Jordan Ferreira. Let's begin. Welcome to episode 10 of the Galaxy Poet Podcast. I couldn't be more proud to say that my guest today is not only my favorite photographer, he is the director responsible for my favorite music documentary, and he's responsible for some of the most iconic portraits taken of some of the most iconoclastic personalities in the 21st century, including but not limited to Lenny Kravitz, Dave Chappelle, and Quincy Jones. So I want to get right to the conversation and welcome the astoundingly talented and visionary Mathieu Bitton. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me. What a great introduction. Thank you.
I sincerely mean it, and I appreciate you doing this. There's so many things that I want to ask you because, as I mentioned, Looking Back on Love is sincerely my favorite documentary, and in music, and perhaps period. But the thing that was so beautiful is that, like, obviously there's the component of like all of this travel between Paris and the Bahamas, and there's capturing this moment of the creation of such a special album to me and for many other people. Could you speak a little bit as to what that experience was like making that?
I mean, the funny thing is the whole thing started, the first time I went to Eleuthera in the Bahamas in 2009, I believe it was. I had talked to Lenny about basically producing a 20th anniversary edition of Let Love Rule, as so much of my work is in, the box set, the deluxe editions kind of world. And I was telling him, that he really should, we really should work on something like that together. And so I went to the Bahamas, and when I got to the Bahamas, I had brought like a little camcorder. And he was working on this Negrophilia album, which is, this legendary funk album that he still has not put out. That's probably the greatest thing I've ever heard from him. And so when I got there, he's working on this song called Push for Lee Daniels' movie. I believe I think it was for Lee Daniel for Precious. And so I was just there, and I was like, okay, I know we're supposed to work on this other stuff, but I'm just there. So just started, I was like, hey, do you mind if I film some stuff just for fun? So I, filmed some stuff and then took some pictures, but that's not why I was there. And at a certain point, things evolve, and I go on the road with Lenny in Europe, and we're in Italy, and then, just started traveling with him. And one day we're on the tour bus, and he's calling Mark Seliger, his, dear friend. He's a friend of ours, legendary photographer, had shot a lot of Lenny, had done a book on Lenny, and says, hey, man, can you help me find someone to do a documentary? I want to get a director to do a new documentary on this next album and all this stuff. And I'm like sitting right across from him on the tour bus being like, yo, I can do it. And Lenny's like, oh, yeah, I guess you could do it. So it just kind of happened like that. And I was like, I mean, I've got video cameras and whatever. I'm already shooting stills, and why not? So basically, then he kind of switched gears from this Negrophilia project to Black and White America. And so I just started filming everything, hundreds of hours of us in New Orleans or us in Paris or wherever we were going. I was just filming in sessions in Paris, sessions in the Bahamas, sessions in LA, and just kind of started piecing together this documentary. And I think it was around 2012, maybe, a friend of ours named Paul Hunter, also legendary director who did, classic D'Angelo video. I mean, he did videos for everybody, and including Lenny's Fly Away and American Woman. And he has a production company called Pretty Bird. And they basically were like, hey, if you want to like come edit this film, at our offices, we'll hook you up with an editor. And so they really helped with making the actual, documentary. And I was in there day and night with the editor, who was awesome. And we basically piece this whole thing together. And all of a sudden I realized, because the song Push was on it, and I had filmed like the very first session the first day I got to the Bahamas the first time. I was like, shit, I have footage of this, which is crazy. And so it was just kind of like meant to be. Like I didn't know when I was filming that footage that it was going to be used in a movie. I just thought, I've got some crappy Canon, camcorder, and I was very insecure actually about the documentary, because so much of the quality I thought was so crappy, because I was filming on whatever cameras I had, and some flip cameras, which were a thing at the time, and the
Wow.
quality wasn't that great. But then I realized, as we were editing it, that it kind of had like this real homey quality to it, like home video, that actually made it more personable and more of a fly on the wall experience. Like you actually felt like you were there. And as opposed to if everything was super, clean and glitzy and super clear, it might be more obvious that there's like a camera crew or something in the studio. So I think it turned out, well. And so, yeah, that experience was pretty great. It was filmed over a period of, I want to say, 3 years. One of my favorite part of the documentary is the little montage I did where like Lenny keeps saying the album is done. Over like a period of a year, like every couple months, he would say, "All right, the album's done. Let's celebrate." And then, a couple weeks later, he'd be like, "Oh shit, I got this other song I want to add, or this other thing." And so that was really funny, and that's very indicative of those sessions. Like every time we thought something was finished, it was never finished. So, and it's a great record. I got to do the artwork and everything, and some really memorable times. And it's already like a decade ago, I guess, that that most of this stuff was filmed. So
Yeah.
time flies. Yeah.
It's wild. But I think what you say about, the kinds of cameras that were used to capture the making of the record, and like how maybe in the beginning it was something that you were questioning whether it was, the quality was high enough or something. That is specifically why I love this documentary so much.
Right. Right.
And it's exactly what you say. Like it feels like you're there. And
Right.
for an artist that I'm such a fan of, and like curious about the process and like the kinds of gear and all that stuff, it's so cool to see something where it's like, it's very clear that it's made, by friends, by people who are very close
Right.
in that world.
Right.
It's amazing, man.
Yeah,
So
but
then,
there's even moments where he like talks to me, like
yeah,
when he's talking about negrophilia, and he's, we're gonna put two records, and then and he addresses me, and we're like having a conversation, and it's basically like a lot of times I forgot basically that the camera was rolling, because I would keep the camera rolling, and it was only in the editing process that I realized, oh wow, I didn't know I was actually filming that, and it all kind of came together. And especially like the kids on the islands, like this, a lot of it was like footage I was shooting just because I was there and I wanted to document the kids, very much like the book that I did, which is a lot of the photography from that time, of the kids in Eleuthera and everything, and just it was just documenting. And again, next thing I know, when I'm editing the film, I'm like, oh, this is great footage, like the kids saying welcome to Eleuthera, all that
yeah,
stuff in the beginning, and was purely just me documenting my own experience. So the other great thing about it, now that we're talking about it again, I'm going to watch it again because I haven't seen it in years. But there's something people often don't realize, that it's like I'm telling somebody's story, right? I'm telling Lenny's story for those years, but meanwhile, it's my story too. It's like our lives,
yeah,
our lives was very intertwined, and I was following him around everywhere and all that. So it's an interesting point of view that it's like, while I'm making this film about him, it also documents my life at the time, which is fun for me to look back on and be like, this is what I was doing then.
yeah.
So
I can imagine, and that seems like a really, in the same way that when you make a record and you look back, you kind of realize like, oh my God, that's right, I was wearing those kinds of clothes. I was, like all the
right.
references from that time. I relate in that way for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I wanted to ask you about your visual aesthetic as a photographer,
Mhm.
because you have this innate ability, it seems to me, to like capture someone's essence in a way where I don't think I've seen from any other photographer. And like your
No,
series
thank
of
you.
absolutely, and your series of hand portraits. I
Hmm.
mean, I've never quite seen anything like that, and it's so revealing in a way. So just wondering if you could speak onto what led you to that and your visual aesthetic.
I mean, for me, most of my work, I try to connect with the person that I'm working with or that I'm photographing or documenting. So I'm not necessarily like aiming to get a certain type of picture or a certain type of quality. I'm just connecting with that person. And while we're engaged in a conversation, I'm capturing what you end up seeing. So it's not like, oh, I'm trying to give it my style, or I'm trying to it's really like, a lot of art is probably the greatest compliment I always get. I just got it again, photographing Mary Clayton, who's a legend. I just photographed her new album for Motown. And
Wow.
it's like, people always say, oh, you captured my soul. Like, this is me. This is how I see myself. But I usually don't like myself in pictures because I don't feel like it's my essence, and I get that a lot where people are like, you know, joking about like, I hope you didn't take a piece of my soul, because I really see what you got. And for me, it's really about connecting. It's not, I can't just show up and like, all right, here we are. We're doing a photo shoot. Stand right here. Boom, boom, boom. Shoot. Okay. I got to sit down with the person. I got to get to know them. I got to make them laugh. I got to laugh with them. I got to, relate to them. I've got to figure out what we have in common, what music they like, what films they like. I'm having a whole conversation, and that's in essence what will connect us, and that'll come through the pictures.
Wow.
Um, that's like I said, I mean, I have done the thing where like I show up and shoot a show or something, and pictures are still great, and like Red Hot Chili Peppers, something. Okay, I can only shoot 3 songs. Boom, boom, boom. Let's hope I get all the songs. But that stuff is not where my passion lies. Like, I love shooting bands, so I do it because I hadn't photographed the Chili Peppers before. But I would much rather be there and hanging out backstage and talking before the show, and getting to know the person. With people like Lenny or Quincy or Dave Chappelle, they're people that have become close, like family, like close friends. So I don't have to show up and do all that because we're already there. I just show up and do what I do, and we're already connected in that way. So
Wow.
there's a familiarity that really works. So with a new person, the latest example would be like, I just photographed Chris Bosh, who was a Miami Heat NBA basketball player, but we had already kind of become friendly over the past few years. But it was my first time shooting him. Like, there's already that kind of thing that we've established where, and the other great thing is, like, at this point, they know my work when I'm shooting them. So they already know, like, oh, I know I'm getting a certain quality, and they're always like, oh, I hope I get it. And, oh yeah, you got to shoot my hands. And, it's like, there's a thing already where people are like, have a certain kind of predestined vision of what it's going to be. And so now it's a pressure of like, okay, I hope I get, what they want. Usually, yes.
Right.
But it's really about the connection, and I also have to be interested in the person. It can't just be like, hey, we're going to pay you this much to shoot this person and we want that quality. It's like, if it's somebody that I'm not connecting with or I don't like their art, you know most
Sure.
likely I'm not going to do it. And there have been cases of people being kind of upset because they're asking me to photograph them, and I don't want to do it. But that's life.
Yeah. And it's amazing to hear you say that because I certainly in my own experience with the entertainment industry, I've come up against so many instances of sort of like trying to build that sense of connection with a collaborator, whether it be a producer or
Hmm.
something, and and seeing like the norm, at least in my own limited experience, but the norm seems to be, yeah, I'm not really interested in hearing like what you've done before. Like, we're gonna do this, and there's a
Right,
whole series of preconceptions. Whereas what you're saying to me, that's what makes the most sense. Like you have to
right,
establish that connection.
right.
I mean, do you
Oh
do
yeah,
you
for sure.
how important do you think that is? Because it seems to me that's like paramount.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's the most important part, you know. It's not going to be like, two people that have never met before are showing up, and then all of a sudden you've got like, Picasso and Degas, and they're both going to be like, oh my God, we're geniuses, and look, we don't even have to communicate, and you have to establish something, you have to have a connection. You know, the thing I like about like free form and freestyle jazz is there was that element of whatever, like we don't know each other, or maybe we do, we could just show up on stage and perform together, and some people are going to cover their ears and some people are going to be orgasmic, like
Right.
it's just but jazz is kind of like, I see that with like Dave Chappelle, who I work with now a lot. I see him like a jazz musician. Like he goes on stage and whatever he decides to do, it might not be what people in the audience were expecting, but 99.9% of people are going to be blown away because it's just like he can do something nobody else can. And it's just like, it's like Charlie Parker, Thelonious Monk, or Miles Davis, or Coltrane, or you know, if they were in a certain mood that night, they're going to perform a certain way, and whether you like it or not, a great artist, a true artist, is not there to please their audiences. Like I really believe in that. Like a true artist is there to make art, and whatever their instinct is, and whatever art they're meant to make, it doesn't matter if the audience likes it or not. I know that sounds kind of, not very 2021, but that's how I feel. Like, when I did my first exhibition, the gallerist was like, I mean, I had an exhibition before, but the first that I consider that I'm proud of, this Darker Than Blue exhibition, I was asked by a bunch of people, oh, I want to do a show of your nudes. And I was like, I mean, like a French guy doing a show of naked women, that's not very original. Yes, I used to shoot that, but it's not interesting. I don't want to do a show of that. I have no interest in that. So I want to do something that I'm passionate about. And, that's my whole Darker Than Blue series, and, Black communities all over the world. And whether they like it or not, that was my attitude. Like, hey, this is the show I'm going to do. And they were supportive, and they've been, Leica cameras, everybody's been super supportive, but, it's kind of take it or leave it for me. Like, hey, if you guys would rather the nude show, then I'm not going to do a show. So I also think artists have to stand their ground and really, push what they feel is their art, not just what they're expected to deliver.
Wow.
And great artists are like that. Like, you know you ask an artist who's under a recording contract, like, hey, where's the album? Like, come on, you're supposed to deliver an album by now. But if the guy hasn't felt like his album is finished, which I've seen a lot with people like Prince or Lenny or D'Angelo or a lot of different artists, you know, who gives a fuck if it's not delivered on time? Who gives a fuck if it takes 2 more years? If you're gonna get Black Messiah when the album comes out, you know what I mean, or
Yes.
Voodoo or something like that, then I'll wait 15 years for Black Messiah. And I was very happy when D'Angelo dropped that, and it was worth waiting 15 years for that new album. It's like if it had been like a horribly disappointing album, then bummer.
Yeah.
But I knew it wouldn't be. I knew it would be exciting. You know, there's artists like Prince who could knock out several albums a year if they wanted to, and there's other artists that need to marinate, and all of them are great. Like I don't think anybody's better for putting out more music. Personally, as everybody knows, I'm a huge Prince fan, and I see the quality of the work and the quantity and the quality, and it was really all so much great music.
Yeah.
But again, for himself, like I remember going to a show. I actually was working on this show. Prince did a BB King Club at Universal City here in LA, and I had designed all the marketing stuff for this Live at the Aladdin DVD he was doing and Universal put it out, and so I was kind of in charge of like the marketing, and we did the show at BB King Club, and everybody was so excited because a bunch of people had never seen Prince live, and it's a tiny club, it's small club, and he had this album he had just recorded called News, and North, East, West, South, and it was a whole instrumental album, like 4 instrumental pieces, and
Yeah.
he performed that and people were like really frustrated because he had a microphone and like he just moved the microphone off the stage and like basically, making it clear he wasn't going to sing. And he
Wow.
did a whole instrumental show. A lot of people were pissed because they were like, even the label people were like, come on, like, we paid him to do this and this is what he does. I'm like, you don't judge a guy like Prince. Like, if that's what he felt like doing that night, you're lucky to witness that one show he did that was all instrumental, like jazzy kind of, Return to Forever, Chick Corea kind of,
Yeah.
bitches brew vibe. And it was amazing.
Wow.
And, but, when you deal with an artist on that level, you're not one to, make requests or tell him what they should do. It's like a great DJ. You don't go up to a great DJ in a club and say, "Hey, can you play George Michael's song next?"
Yeah.
Fuck that. Whatever he's doing, that's why he's there, because he's a great DJ. One of my biggest pet peeves, and I've actually snapped at people, and I'm not proud of it, but it was out of my control. But people who say like, "Hey, you should shoot this. You're missing this," or like, "What? Why aren't you taking this picture?" and blah blah blah. And it's like I go by feeling. Like a great example of that is, I guess, the year before last. Now, yeah, it was 2019. I'm with Dave Chappelle. We go to this party at the Peppermint Club in LA for Nipsey Hussle had like a sneaker collab, and so it was a Nipsey Hussle party, and we go there, and I meet Nipsey Hussle, and it's Jay-Z and Snoop Dogg, all these people, and I had a camera on me, and the previous time I saw Jay-Z in South Africa in Johannesburg, we're having a conversation backstage, and he's telling me how one of the things he really appreciates about me is that even though I'm a photographer, I'm always like, hanging out. I'm not just there to take photos. Like, I'm there because I also love the art. I love the music. We can have conversations, and it's not like artists have to feel like I'm always going to take their picture when I'm in the room with them.
Right.
So I see Jay-Z. I say hi to him. I say hi to Nipsey Hussle, and in my head, I remember this conversation with Jay-Z from like the previous year, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna keep my camera like on my side. I'm not gonna take pictures, and that was my instinct. And then so we just hung out. We had a great night. We stayed there super late. A week later, I think Nipsey Hussle was killed, and my first thought was like, wow, man, I wish I had taken a photo. And then I said no, because like my instinct was not to. So even though I'm sad, and other people who were there were like, man, you didn't get a picture of and it's like, well, Jen, who is his photographer, got some pictures. I'm even in some of the pictures, and it's like, so it's documented. But I
Wow.
had to follow that instinct, and it's tough sometimes. And so my point is, sometimes people like start like snapping at me, like, hey, get this picture, and it's like, no, I'm not that guy. I'm never going to be that guy who you can snap at to get pictures. I'm going to take a picture, and I'm not saying it at all to be arrogant, but I also, it's a respect for the people in the room.
Yeah.
And, there's a certain point, like we had Elon Musk a few weeks ago. We had Elon Musk, at Dave's show in Austin, and he was there, and I took a bunch of pictures and stuff. And at a certain point, it felt like no more pictures. And then other people were like, oh, can you get a picture of me and Elon? I'm like, you know what? We're done taking pictures. Like, it just felt like you can see it in the people's eyes, like when it's like one too many pictures about to happen. And I have to read that body language and be like, I'm not going to be the paparazzi guy who's like, okay, hey, Elon, one more picture, one more picture. Even
Wow.
with Dave, who's like family to me now, I know when it's time to stop. And I think like one of the things that I see and bothers me a lot is photographers that never stop shooting.
Right.
They're, oh well, there's a celebrity here, so I have to keep shooting, keep shooting, keep shooting. It's like, no, those people don't want to be photographed nonstop. You know what I mean? They want to have a break too. So
Yeah.
you know, it's
Wow.
just it's just that's the way it is. For me. So
Yeah. See,
yeah,
to me, that's what makes you a master, because it's one thing to be a great photographer, but it's another thing to have the kind of sensitivity where you're like, you know what, this person that we're supposed to be here and taking photos of, I can feel, that it's at a
Hmm.
point where it's like it's not comfortable anymore, and
Right.
you have that instinct where like, you know what, no more photos. And I think that makes people understand like, wow, you're more than a photographer at that point. I feel like there is that feeling of like he is actually looking out for me as well, like
Right.
beyond getting the photos.
Right. 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 I see what you mean.
I think that's really important, man. And oh, the other point that you had made that I wanted to mention is when you talk about the artistic impulse, more so than catering to the expectations, perhaps of the record label or the fans or whatever it may be. That is like almost word for word exactly what my philosophy is as an artist and what all the
Hmm.
artists that I love kind of live by.
Right.
So that I feel like that's something that's not said often, especially not that I can remember recently. But I think there is something where like whether you're an amazing photographer, whether you're a musician, whatever it is, when you feel that instinct, that artistic impulse to say something and you have something to say, it almost transcends like the expectation.
Right.
Do you know,
Right.
do you relate to that in any way?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's how you approach
I agree with you.
okay, the photography. That makes a lot of sense. So then would you ever consider doing like a feature film yourself, like writing and directing? Because it
Oh
seems
yeah.
like
That's one of my big plans for sure. Yeah.
I wow. I feel like you'd be cosmically good at that.
Oh, thank you. No, I definitely have some ideas, but that's definitely, and it's funny. I was thinking about that last night. It's funny you ask about that because I was already thinking like I know who I'm going to ask to do the score. Like it's kind of a cool way of like knowing in advance that I have like the people, for each thing that I want to do, I have the right people in place. So
That's
it's kind of a
inspiring.
cool, yeah, it's kind of a cool thing.
So where do you think this visual aesthetic that you have, whether it's the you know the idea to have this like series of hand portraits or just the way you infuse and distill someone's like essence, where do you think that came from for you, just creatively?
You mean the desire to do the hand photos?
Yeah, even beyond the hand photos, just like the way you're able to, there's the sense of like composition and like artistry. Like, where do you think that comes from?
I mean, it probably comes from all the things I grew up with. Like I've talked about this often. I grew up going to the Paris flea markets. I grew up in Paris. I was born in Paris, France, and probably all the time I spent in the flea markets and seeing so much art and record covers and books. I was really inspired by all this art, and so I think it's just you know part of my blood. It's part of me, and I need. I was always, like I said before, very insecure about my work, and it took me a really long time to even be able to call myself a photographer. And now when I see my book, like when I receive my book, the Darker Than Blue book, and it's like a real published hardcover book, part of me is like, wow, I can't believe this is my work. Like I still don't fully believe in myself as a photographer, but then I'm like, I see that stuff, I'm like, well,
Wow.
maybe it's real. And other people's reactions, even hearing you say that, and like other artists that I meet that are just like so excited about the work, and I'll be like, wait, they're probably thinking about somebody else's work. Like I still have that. But
Wow.
at the same time, I think that's what keeps me excited and humble, and keeps me going.
Yeah.
So
I've heard a few artists talk about this, how like that sense of I don't know if it's insecurity or whatever it may be, and I certainly relate to it as well, but like that is sort of fuel, like you say, that's sort of like it compels them to continue and
right,
to get better and to transcend, you know?
right, yeah,
I think that's a
yeah,
huge thing. But yes, your
yeah,
work in Darker Than Blue that I've been able to see is extraordinary. My God, the photo album of Lenny Kravitz, the table kind of book. We did the cover, I
Oh,
believe.
the Rizzoli one. Yeah, I mean, I
Yes.
designed the whole book. Yeah,
I
edited that book too.
Wow. Yeah, that's my favorite photography book. I have that like on my table in Los Angeles, and that's like,
Oh, cool.
yeah. So that cover photo was taken in Italy.
Yeah, yeah. It
Wow.
was taken in Vigevano. It was actually taken on an iPhone, which a lot of people don't know, because I was like, I remember I went to the bathroom and I came back to get my cameras and I saw Lenny walking to the stage for sound check, and he's got no shirt on. It was like 110 degrees or something,
Wow.
and I'm like, oh shit, I don't have my camera, but I had my iPhone, so I started taking picture on that Hipstamatic app actually, which
Wow.
was like my favorite app, that fake Polaroid app.
Wow.
And so it was funny when we were editing the book and everybody picked that photo as the book cover. I was like, at the time, nobody knew except for Lenny that it was shot on an iPhone, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I spent a year and a half editing that book, gathering all the photos from all the photographers and working with my friend Jessica at Rizzoli. That's actually how we met, working on that book. I've designed a bunch of books for Rizzoli ever since. And but yeah, that was a grueling but fun project, and I designed the book and everything as well. And but Lenny and I have been talking about doing my own book, of all my photos. So we'll probably get to that at some point,
Wow. That
sooner than later. Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of work there. So
that's amazing,
yeah,
man. What a thing that would be. That would be incredible. Like all these different artists,
I'm
all these
sure.
different artistic mediums. Yeah, I also wanted to pick up on something you said about Chappelle and how he reminds you of a jazz musician in terms of the
Hmm.
improvisation. Like, what is your approach when you're working with someone like that? When you're taking photos, is it you constantly like making sure that you're aware of what's going on because you don't know what's going to happen at any given moment, or like what's sort of the vibe when you're
Um, I mean, the vibe is I'm just tuning into the moment. So it's like, you know, often people are like, especially with like rock and roll photos I've taken, like Lenny photos or Rolling Stones or whoever, people are like, man, how'd you get that shot? And it's like the same thing, if anybody is anticipating the moment, you have to anticipate where the person is going to be and hope to God you get it in focus, and because people are moving fast and all that. And people don't realize sometimes, I'm shooting with these very sensitive Leica cameras. They're the best, but it's like you really have to know what you're doing, and so for me, it's just like really zeroing in on the moment, and I'm seeing the moment like a split second before it happens. Like I can see the picture before it happens. So there's a weird like psychic, you know, like
wow,
a weird psychic ability that is like, oh, I can see this image. It's not there yet, but I see it in my mind, and like, it's almost like I'm taking that photo with my eyes closed, not literally because it probably wouldn't be a good photo, but you know, it's that anticipation that's important. I think, there's photographers that like go and shoot like 3,000 photos in a show because they just want to make sure they have what they need. I'm not that guy. I'm still, I shoot a bunch, but I'm still focusing on every image. Like, you know, I'm composing every image, and it's like important for me that I do that. Other people, like I see a lot of people at shows who are shooting like this, like blah 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 blah. They're not even looking through the camera. Drives me crazy. I've had to do it. I had to learn to do it because last summer I broke both my arms in an accident,
wow,
and so I had to suddenly shoot on a tripod, and I mean I could still look through the camera, but I had to do a lot of this once my arm started working a little bit and I can hold the camera again. I had to shoot like this. I didn't have the arm strength to put it up to my face.
wow.
So, in those circumstances I had to do that, but I'm kind of a purist as far as, how I shoot. And to me, like an image should be composed through the camera's, viewfinder.
Right.
But it's really all about creating that imagery in your mind and hoping you get it, in real life. I see we're all like pixelated again, but I don't know if
Oh,
you
it
guys are
looks,
okay on your end.
yeah, it
Looks
looks
good
good
on
here.
your end?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, good. Good.
cool. That's beautiful, man. I feel like I have, as someone who doesn't really actively like know much about photography, I do know when there's something that's happening that's channeling some level of creativity that's just it's not
Mm,
in other photographs. And that's what I
right.
feel when I look at your photos. Like,
Mm,
I don't
thank you.
know, yeah, I don't know what technically is happening, but I can say that I look at it and I'm like, that's magic. That just looks like magic to me, you know?
Oh, thank you. I mean, I
Absolutely.
think what the magic is in what I'm capturing, I don't think it's me, but it's just a matter of like, I guess, collaborative effort between the capturer and the subject.
Sure.
And that's always a dance.
Absolutely. What do you think is going to change with respect to like the art form of photography in the next say 10 or 15 years? Because technology's,
I mean,
you know,
there'll probably be like a ring that takes photos in the next couple years, but I think the art of photography, the craft of photography is always going to be with cameras. Uh, and I am like very impressed with like these iPhone cameras. Like I do use my phone for certain pictures, and like it blows my mind how good the quality is. So I'm not mad at all at taking photos with your phone. And I think it's like also affordable for a lot of people who can't afford these expensive cameras.
sure.
So I'm with that, but I do think as far as the craft, nothing's ever going to be like shooting through a camera and the lenses and picking your aperture and like manual shooting is very important. So I think just like vinyl records are back,
Yeah.
and like I'm here designing a lot of vinyl. I don't think cameras are going to go away. I do think there's going to be a lot more people shooting on their phones and stuff, but anyone who appreciates photography, anyone who's a fan of the art form, are always going to appreciate uh, camera work.
Yeah.
So,
I
but
agree.
everybody's a photographer today, and that's fine. I just think you can tell the ones that are doing it just to capture everything and their meal and their outfits every day, and the layout on their bed or what pillows they got on their couch and what lipstick they're using, 3 lipsticks a day. It's like that's social media, but the craft itself, I think, will always be strong.
Yeah.
Just like making music. I mean, yes, you can make music on your laptop. It's great. I mean, it's amazing that they've made it affordable for musicians who can't pay $3,000 a day for a studio.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But a Neve console is never going to be the same as the filter on your a plug-in on your you know
Yeah.
computer. It's just like. So you're always going to have a better sound by going to you know A&M Studios or Henson or wherever, Sunset Sound, especially then you're going to make your music at home. But most people can make it at home. There's nothing wrong with it. But going into like Studio 3 at Sunset Sound is never going to sound, you know, better. It's like it's the same thing.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think you're right. It's beautiful in one way that it's like democratizing the ability to make music, right? But
Hmm.
it's also kind of flooding it's flooding the landscape with things that maybe are not the quality that it could be or something like that. So I think it's true what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing I wanted to ask you is being in such close proximity and seeing greatness so often in the work that you do, and obviously embodying it yourself and kind of doing great work yourself and doing it for a very long time. I'm curious, like, are there insider, like, when you see the insider, or when you get a chance to experience, like, the insider psychology of a master like Dave Chappelle or Lenny Kravitz, like, are there any lessons within that you could impart to maybe aspiring artists, whether it's an aspiring photographer or
Yeah.
filmmaker?
There's one lesson that I see, and that is discipline. That you
Mm,
have to have discipline in your craft, and those guys have so much discipline, be it in their music or in their body. Like I've never seen anybody healthier than Lenny. Like the way the guy he never does drugs, never think it's so not rock and roll, but it's like he's so health conscious, and he wakes up in the morning and we'll do like an hour and a half workout, and we'll eat like I was with him for like a year. He ate raw foods for a year. I was like, what the hell is this? It's amazing. I can't do it. And that discipline, and then he brings that discipline into the recording studio. And Dave, with his writing and with his performing, and like how Dave, I've seen him like do 5 6 hour shows. Somebody paid like whatever small amount of money to see him at the Belly Room at the Comedy Store. They think they're going to see 45 minutes. 6 hours later, he's still on stage doing the most epic set anybody's ever seen in their life. So
Yeah.
it's like that discipline in the craft, like to do so many shows and to practice so much, and to even when he tapes a special, like how much you'll work it, how you'll work it. It's like it's not no, they don't take their craft for granted. And so I think discipline is the main thing. I think it's like when photographers ask me, you know, hey, what can you tell me? It's like, well, what I can tell you is to go shoot, take your camera and go shoot every day. Like that's the only thing I can really tell you.
Right.
I can't tell you to go like stalk an artist and maybe they'll hire you, because
Yeah.
most likely you'll end up in prison. But you just have to really like make your craft as good as it can be, so that when that artist sees it, they're like, oh, I like this kid. I want to try. I want to give him a shot,
Yeah.
and focus on the important things. And my friend Ruth told me something great yesterday about like Elon Musk was on Clubhouse, and somebody said to him like, "Oh my God, Elon, what words of wisdom do you have to encourage a young entrepreneur?" And his response was like, "If you need words of encouragement, you're not an entrepreneur." You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, yeah, bars. That's absolutely right. And I think part of the problem today that I see is a lot of people are kind of putting their success on other people. Like, oh, if you would just help me. I'll see it sometimes. Like, I'll get like messages, and it's like, why do you have to shoot all this stuff? You could hire a young photographer and give him a chance and all that stuff. And it's like, well, I mean, first of all, it's still my work, and I have to do my work, and I have to, support my family and do all these things. And if I can ever support, young photographers, I do it. If I can hire somebody, I do it. But why is it on me? You know what I mean? Did I call somebody and say, hey man, it's not fair. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. And no, I just did what I, you know, knew I had to do, which is to just never stop working until hopefully someday I'll get paid for it.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And so I think, because we're in the age of entitlement, it's tough because people feel entitled to everything. And it's the same thing where somebody says like, oh, I saw this guy on the street, and he wasn't very nice, and blah blah blah, and I wanted to get a picture, and it's like, but dude, like you also have to give people like privacy, and you have to let them, like, they're going to entertain you through their work. That's what it's there for.
Yes.
And I've seen it. They're very nice, but people always want more. Like, hey, can you? Here's my sister. Can say hello. Like I've literally like been with artists walking in the street, and somebody walks up on FaceTime, like, yo, tell my sister happy birthday, or hey, can you record the voicemail? It's like, come on, that's not fair either. Like, you have
Yeah.
to respect these people and their privacy, and that they're giving you so much of themselves through their art. And you know to me, it's not being an asshole if you say, hey, sorry, I'm not taking pictures right now because I have a day off, and I'm, or you don't have to justify it. Like, I just, hey, hi, I see it a lot. Hi, can I just say hello, and like, hey, nice to meet you? No, I want the photo. And nobody will believe me. And it's all about that today. It's all about, like, if I don't post it on Instagram, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's not real unless I can prove it. And that's a very, very big problem with this generation, is that it's that entitlement, and feeling like everything is owed to you, that everything is like, you know do, like, you have to do this, I have to. It's like, no, everybody's got to do their own thing, and everybody's got their own path, and everybody's got their own road to success, and some will make it, some won't, but it's usually the ones that have really like worked really hard at their craft to do,
Yeah.
unless of course it's like a nepotism thing, which is very real. Like I see in France, where I'm from, like most of the famous actors are the sons and daughters of other famous, actors, and most of the singers are the sons and daughters, but there still have to be some level of talent to remain there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even that, when people's like, "Oh, it's not fair," or she's the daughter of this, or it's like, well, okay, but there's still. I understand if they're really bad at it,
Yeah.
but if they're succeeding and they're lasting, their success, having like a one-time success doesn't mean you're successful. It's the lasting power that's important, So,
Yes.
even if you're the son and daughter of someone and you've proven to be very talented, and good for you, you're doing it. Yes, you had an advantage, but sometimes that's a disadvantage, because everybody's expecting from you what your mother or father did, So those who make it big in that way actually respect, because it's not an easy thing, But
Yeah.
I think, perseverance and discipline and hard work is everything. Like people are always like, "Oh, you never sleep." I'm like, "Wow, I look tired today." Yeah, because I'm working on these, few things, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I don't sleep a lot. I have never slept a lot, and but do I love what I do? Yes. So I'm not going to complain about it.
Right. I think that's an amazing point, man, as far as perseverance and work ethic and just being disciplined. Because ultimately, right, I mean, that is it. I think work ethic outdoes talent. If you're talented but you're
Right.
not going to work, the person that's going to work that doesn't have talent is going to beat you.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And
You
it's
know,
yeah,
and no, no, it's absolutely right. And some people are talented, but are just waiting for the opportunities to come, and they never come. So,
yeah,
there's a lot. People are way more talented than everybody on the top 10 charts right now. But those people on the top 10 charts are more aggressive, and might have worked harder at it, or at least have a team that worked harder. That's the other thing. If you have a team behind you that's working hard like that, you'll probably make it.
yeah. So
I mean, you don't even need to know how to sing anymore to be in the top 10. You got auto tune and all that. So,
yeah, that kind of brings me to something again. I wanted to ask you, like, with COVID, with this situation of like a global, not a total economic shutdown, but like a free fall of sorts, right?
yeah, yeah.
Do you think that there's a possibility where, in the same way that all the tumultuous kind of challenges of the '60s brought about some of the greatest art ever made, do you think it's possible this could be a renaissance of sorts in the arts
I've
because of
been
that?
I've been saying that. Yeah, I've been saying that a lot through the pandemic, that I think great art is going to come out of it. You know, just like we'll use as an example Dave's 846 special that he put out on YouTube. That is some incredible historical time capsule special that comes out of this horrible thing, the George Floyd murder, and protests and everything. But it's like, out of all this darkness, these amazing works of art can come out.
Yeah,
And so, that's true of music. That's true. A lot of artists I've been talking to, I see like people like Gary Clark Jr. or John Mayer or Lenny, are in the studio making these quarantine albums, and I really can't wait to listen to them, because I want to hear like what they're going to talk about. You know what I mean? I want to hear what they have to say about this world, because a lot of the stuff people have been saying suddenly is not going to be as interesting to a lot of people, because we're in survival mode. And
yes,
so I want to hear what, this person has to say. I want to hear, like, I wish I could hear, like the newest rappers in the street, like kids that are coming up, the way you used to discover kids outside of a club. Uh, I have a friend named Corday. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was
no,
YBN Corday. Now he's just Corday. But, like 2017 or something, like there's a video of him like outside a club, just talking about give me 2 years, and you'll know who I am. And then 2 years later he's nominated for Grammys, and he's like this amazing rapper, hip hop artist. He's doing all this stuff, and but he same thing. He never stopped working. It's like they call it the hustle, but it's like hustle slash work. Like I'm so proud of the guy. You know, he's on the cover of GQ right now
Wow.
with his girlfriend Naomi Osaka, the tennis player. It's like, you know, they're just like there's something to be said about that you know, survival. You know, and I think a lot of these great artists, a lot, especially in hip hop, come from survival. Think about like you know Jay-Z and all these Nipsey Hussle, all these people. Their story has a lot of survival.
Right.
You know, and you know, sadly, if someone like Nipsey Hussle didn't make it, but his art will forever, you know, carry his message. And so, you know, I think that is a good point. I think a lot of great art is going to come out of this.
I,
I'm
I
excited. You know,
yeah.
I mean, you know, I had this whole moment last summer of all the protest photos. I was out shooting and all that, and you know, I had some very big moments, and I was just like, wow, this is what photography is actually about. Like, I'm in a protest. I take some photos. I post them. They went completely viral, and next thing I know, they're on CNN and on ABC and this and that, and you know, Essence magazine and the editor of Life magazine posted. You know, just for being there. So that's also something, you know, out of the darkness, you know, something comes to light. You know, I did this fundraiser and raised all this money for Black communities and Black Lives Matter, you know, related charities and stuff with selling prints from these protests. I mean, you know, a lot of great stuff can be done through art, you know, and you can really help people through art. So I think, you know, that was all from, you know, during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So,
And,
yeah.
and I have to say that photo that you took at the Black Lives Matter protest where the woman was holding her son, I believe,
That's the one. Yeah, that yeah. Well, it was her partner's son. Yeah.
her partner's son. Um,
Her
yeah.
name is Felicia and the little boy's name is Cash. And I stay in contact with them too. They found me, you know, when the photo went viral, they found me on Instagram and
Wow.
we've been in touch ever since. And, you know, I get videos of Cash like football games and I sent him a jersey for Christmas. You know, it's like really
Wow.
sweet. A Rams jersey. Like, you know, you never know. Like you know, I remember his mom telling me like that photo, seeing himself in Essence magazine, like so many people posted that photo. It was everywhere on TV. That suddenly the 6-year-old kid, I mean, he turned 6 after the photo, but suddenly felt like anything was possible. He's like, "Mommy, I'm on TV." Like, you know, and who knows? That moment could have changed the whole course of his life because he now feels like a certain you know, self assurance that he might have not felt before. And I'm certainly not taking credit for that. It's the whole way that the viral moments work, you know.
Yeah.
But like, how amazing that this little kid all of a sudden felt like, you know, larger than life because he's like, whoa, I went to this protest and, you know, I'm holding the sign up, and next thing, the entire world is seeing me in this photo. I mean, that's the amazing thing of social media. Like, I wish social media was just that and not like, you know, another photo of Kylie Jenner's butt and you know what
Yeah.
bikini she's wearing, or you know some obnoxious like 3-year-old you know Jenner kid who's got like a Rolls Royce or a Ferrari or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
like there's such like stupidity on social media, but that was a perfect example for me of how social media could really be used, you know, for the greater good. And you know, I was very proud of that moment in my life, you know, and I'm proud to have those pictures in my book as well. That's the last chapter in the Darker Than Blue book,
Wow.
you know, talking about the protests and everything. So yeah,
And yeah, I have to say that photo is immortal. I mean,
no, thank you.
it's magical, and I could not encourage people to look into more of these, like whether it's Darker Than Blue, whether it's the Lenny Kravitz book that you edited, and like all of these compendiums of your work are some of the. I mean, they are to me the greatest photos I've ever seen. So I can't
Oh,
recommend it.
thank you so much. I
Absolutely.
really appreciate it. Yes,
Absolutely, sir. Well, I think that's an inspiring note to end on, man. I just want to say thank you so
perfect.
much for doing this.
Thank you for having me, and you know, look forward to hearing what you're up to next, and stay in touch.
Absolutely, man. And be safe. And again, like, I
Thank you. You too.
yeah, I look forward to all your future work, man. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm working on some cool projects that are not announced yet. So stay tuned to the Instagram whenever they can be revealed. It's going to be a good one.
Oh, I will, and I recommend everybody else to check it out as well. And we'll include all of the social media information for you
Okay,
on the
cool.
actual podcast. But yeah, have a great
Perfect.
day, man. Thank you.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.